And I'll give you the truth why I'm not Speaker. It's because one person, a member of Congress, wanted me to stop an ethics complaint because he slept with a 17-year-old.
The House Ethics Committee has taken an unusual step and has announced that it is expanding the investigation into Congressman Matt Gaetz. Let's discuss. I'm Dave Aronberg, State Attorney for Palm Beach County, aka the Florida Lawman, here on the MeidasTouch Network. Thank you for all your views and your likes and your comments. I know a lot of people have been interested in the investigation of Matt Gaetz because, you remember, Gaetz was investigated by the Department of Justice, and before people on the right say this is all political, it was commenced under Bill Barr. That's right. The investigation of Matt Gaetz started under the Trump administration and eventually was dropped by Merrick Garland. That's right. So it started under Trump. It ended under Biden. And so it's hard to say this is political. So when it was dropped, people wanted to know why. Well, the prosecutors kept this close to the vest, but reports came out that it was because of lack of credibility of the two main witnesses against Matt Gaetz. So prosecutors will only file charges when they have a good faith belief they could get a conviction beyond a reasonable doubt. And even though probable cause could exist, which is enough to make an arrest, prosecutors need more than that to get a conviction. And so when prosecutors felt that the two main witnesses were not going to influence the jury enough, then they had credibility issues, and that was it. And the two main witnesses were Joel Greenberg, who is like a walking criminal enterprise. He ended up pleading guilty and is serving an 11-year federal prison sentence, but he cooperated extensively. In fact, the judge in the case said he's never seen a defendant cooperate more than Joel Greenberg. But the dude has got major credibility problems, especially because when he was running for re-election as tax collector in Florida, gotta love Florida, he campaigned against his opponent, a fellow Republican, and accused him of being a pedophile. And that was false. It was made up. And so you can see why federal prosecutors were like, I don't know if I want to put him as the main witness on the stand without enough corroboration to call Matt Gaetz the same thing he called his previous opponent, and previously it was untruthful. So you need real corroboration. And the corroboration here could come with the victim in the case. The victim in the case, alleged victim, is someone who was allegedly lying about her age to be on the Seeking Arrangements website, someone who was 17 and lied about being 19, and then entered into a career of sex work. So you can see again why that could pose some credibility issues. And I know, look, I'm not trying to pass judgment on people's choices of work, but the reality is if you are going to put a case in front of a jury, you got to have someone to help tell the story, to be the lead witness. And Greenberg has his issues, and the 17-year-old who lied about her age allegedly and is involved with sex work, the prosecutors felt those were not enough to go after a sitting member of Congress. Would they have been enough if Matt Gaetz was not in Congress? That's up to the DOJ. I can't speak to that, perhaps. But they decided under Merrick Garland this was going to be a higher burden, and they decided they didn't have enough. Now, to me, what was interesting is they also had, according to reports, Matt Gaetz's ex-girlfriend, someone who seemed to be credible, someone who had no axe to grind. They had a relationship that ended without any hard feelings. She worked for the government, went before the grand jury, got immunity, and said apparently that Gaetz was trying to influence a witness from testifying before for law enforcement on this subject. But federal prosecutors are less likely to charge someone with obstruction as a standalone crime unless they have an underlying crime. And when you have the other witnesses who are not super credible on the underlying crime, that's probably why the federal prosecutors decided not to pursue the case against Matt Gaetz. So I'm just giving you my perspective as a prosecutor of what went on. But now, the House Ethics Committee, which is unburdened by those restrictions as federal prosecutors, they're moving forward. And if you think the House Ethics Committee has no juice, well, just ask George Santos. Yeah, George Santos was thrown out of Congress because if the Republicans want to get rid of you, they get rid of you. They wanted him out. And Another option for Republicans is to find a primary candidate to run against you. They did that with Madison Cawthorn. Remember that guy? They got him out too. Now, Kevin McCarthy found a Republican to run against Matt Gaetz in the primary that's coming up in August in a very red district in the Panhandle. But this Republican doesn't look like he has a great chance, in part because he is apparently a pro-DEI Republican, which could sell perhaps in a Democratic primary. It may help him in a general election, but in a hardcore Republican primary where there's a low turnout, Matt Gaetz is painting him as a pro-DEI outsider from Missouri running against him. It's an uphill battle. The only way they're going to get rid of Matt Gaetz is to boot him out of Congress. And the House Ethics Committee is on its way there. And it's partially because Matt Gaetz pissed off Kevin McCarthy. Kevin McCarthy was the Speaker of the House, and he and Gaetz never got along. And Kevin McCarthy did the investigation of Matt Gaetz. And then it was paused because the Department of Justice was still doing its thing. And then when they put the kibosh on their investigation, then the House Ethics Committee investigation picked right back up. And Matt Gaetz did not forget. And so he helped oust Kevin McCarthy. And now Kevin McCarthy is going after Matt Gaetz through his proxies in the House. So this is internal MAGA warfare fighting each other. And I think it's going to lead eventually to a vote on kicking Matt Gaetz out of Congress. I think they're going to bring up ethics charges against Matt Gaetz because they're not under the same rules as federal prosecutors. They don't have to have a belief they can get a conviction beyond a reasonable doubt because it is not a criminal case. There's no jail time there. So they just have to show that Matt Gaetz engaged in improper conduct, and then they can vote him out. And here, the committee, to show you that they mean business, this House Ethics Committee gave an unusual public update into its investigation of Matt Gaetz. They don't normally go public, but they did here. And they've announced that their investigation has expanded. At the same time, they announced they were closing off certain others. And here's what they said. According to the Associated Press, the committee said its review now includes whether Gaetz engaged in sexual misconduct and illicit drug use, accepted improper gifts, and sought to obstruct government investigations of his conduct. Again, they don't play by the same rules as federal prosecutors. You don't have to have an underlying crime to get someone on obstruction. So it's game on. Now, according to the Associated Press, the committee also announced that it was no longer reviewing 4 other allegations involving the congressman, including that he shared inappropriate images or videos with colleagues on the House floor, or that he accepted a bribe or converted campaign funds to personal use. According to the Washington Post, the update was released the morning after Gaetz took to X, the website formerly known as Twitter, to criticize the House Ethics Committee for opening new frivolous investigations into his activities, castigating the committee as Soviet and working at the behest of former Speaker Kevin McCarthy, who Gaetz last year helped oust from the speakership. Gaetz has categorically denied the allegations before the panel. The committee wrote in the statement before noting the difficulty in obtaining relevant information from the lawmaker. Still, investigators have spoken with more than a dozen witnesses, issued 25 subpoenas, and reviewed thousands of pages of documents in this matter, the committee added. According to ABC News, investigators have interviewed at least half a dozen women who allegedly attended parties where the Florida congressman was also present and who were paid by Joel Greenberg, Gaetz's one-time close friend. Greenberg was sentenced in 2022 to 11 years in federal prison after pleading guilty to multiple charges, including sex trafficking a minor and introducing the minor to other adult men, sources tell ABC News. In the interviews, which have previously not been reported, some witnesses have been shown Venmo payments they allegedly received from Gaetz and asked if those payments were for sexual activities, sources said. Some of the witnesses have been subpoenaed by the committee, while others have agreed to cooperate, according to the sources. One woman, who ABC News is not identifying, told the committee that a payment from Gaetz was for sex, while others have said they were paid to attend parties that Gaetz also attended and that featured drugs and sex. Multiple sources told ABC News Gaetz has long denied all the allegations, including paying for sex, and previously dismissed them by claiming Someone is trying to recategorize my generosity to ex-girlfriends as something more untoward. The Justice Department informed Gaetz in 2023 that it was declining to bring charges against him after its year-long investigation. So it was in 2023 when the Department of Justice stopped the investigation, and then it was picked up by the House. And yeah, it's going on. And this thing is headed and reaching a boil pretty quickly. And one way to know is that the House committee made this very unusual public announcement right after Gaetz went on Twitter. I'm not calling it X. Went on Twitter to blast the committee. So the committee is fighting back. They clearly have taken this personally. They clearly miss Kevin McCarthy, who's still involved in trying to even scores with Matt Gaetz. And so get your popcorn. This thing is not going away. And that is the latest. I'm Dave Aronberg, aka the Florida Lawman, here on the MeidasTouch Network. If you like this video, please like it and leave a comment below. And I'll see you next time.
Love this video? Make sure you stay up to date on the latest breaking news and all things Meidas by signing up to the MeidasTouch newsletter at MeidasTouch.com/newsletter.